Thank you, Albert. I think that I will also continue in English. Also, my points are in Albanian. I see that there is translation, but I'll continue in English. Let me first of all express my appreciation to Andresha and to our Committee on Foreign Affairs and Friedrich Herbert and Peter and his team for bringing together this, let's say, a nice event that is shaping a bit the public discourse that we are discussing, because usually we talk about issues that are very common and very, let's say, short-term in politics in our country, and this is a bit deeper and, let's say, wide in a sense. So when I talk, or when I read the subject of this panel, the role of civil society in media, and media in shaping democratic processes, I cannot go from this stage without giving a bit of chronology, and then in the chronology giving the arguments why the role of civil society in media in our late history from the 90s is so obvious, and we cannot and we should not avoid without giving the right presence and the right value for everything what they did. So my presentation is divided in 3 stages. After the fall of communist rule, and then the, let's say, the resistance, Rugova's resistance time, then post-war and post-independence. When we see back the 90s, we see political organizations led by Rugova that did political work, political, let's say, shaping of our problem, our human rights problem, our occupation. And then you see civil society that, believe it or not, were there to deliver services. Mother Teresa Society delivered the humanitarian, social welfare, and health services for the country. Whereas the Council for Defense and Human Rights and Freedoms was there to document the human rights violation, the interrogation, and many other issues worldwide. Whereas the women NGOs, Women for Women, the center led by Dr. Farida Rushidi and many others that I should not mention, were there to support women cause and women's rights. When the Kosovo Liberation Army started its efforts to push forward the liberty and the freedom, it was the NGOs and it was the media. I just saw Veton Suroi, who just joined us here. It was Coaditore and the journalists from Coaditore that were right at the spot, in Prekas, in Likošan, everywhere, to report about what's going on. So basically, if the KLA soldiers went there to fight and die for freedom, it was the journalists that were there to tell the truth, to pose the truth. And I think that we should also not escape from this moment and also express the tribute for many journalists that passed away, including Enver Maluku, that was part of the time at the center. Where is the role of civil society after the war in shaping democracy? I have 3 R's to share with you: rebuilding, reconciliation, and reforming. On rebuilding, I mean, we were totally lost. 15,000 killed, people killed, 1 million people escaped, 100,000 houses burned, so the country was without us. So it was a civil society organization that went, that established an NGO. I remember many of you, you were maybe children at that time, the Office of Registration of NGOs, it was there to register many different NGOs, and we reached to the point that we had 2,000 NGOs that covered basically the role of the state in rebuilding. But then another important topic was the entire reconciliation. And somehow I see that people, they don't just want to escape from the debate. The multi-ethnic concept, reconciliation, inter-ethnic coexistence, these concepts, these discussions were facilitated from NGOs, from brave civil society actors that were there to stand to say that we have here a minority that we should treat equally with other citizens in a state building path, in our independence path. I remember I was at the OSCE pushing forward civic dialogue initiative and many other initiatives. I see Alex there that was also involved in this concept. So it was civil society that touched reconciliation and interethnic coexistence issues, including decentralization with Kipren and with KCSF, including KFOS on Roma and other minority rights that were subjects before we declared independence. So this is how we prepared the society to also do decentralization. And then it comes post-independence era, and here I have 3 P's. It's politics, policies, and power. On politics, usually political parties, they gain lots of power in, let's say, 2004, 5, 6 ministers. It was fancy to be political advisor in the cabinet, and many civil society actors, they just went to politics. Some of them, they created their own parties. So the civil society, it was getting weaker. So it was the civil society then that did the real opposition, talking about anti-corruption measurements, talking about nepotism, talking about clientelism, talking about mismanagement in public sector, and many other issues. So they were opposing the politics. Then, after 2010, 11, 13, we had think tanks, where the policies were issued, where think tanks entered to recommend, to suggest policies, including in the governance, including in independent institutions, but also in the parliament. And I'm concluding with this, where is my current role? I have seen and I read very in-depth and very useful policy papers that are really shaping the policies, that are helping us to prevent what we think is wrong, but also to push and to fight for what we think is right. In conclusion, I have 2 messages. The first one is, if you read a book, How Democracy Dies, which a friend of mine gave to me, you read there that the regimes are not anymore overthrown by military coups, neither by fights. The autocratic regimes are getting enforced, while even where they have huge majority. So people, they get their power in a democratic manner. So people, they go to vote for the leaders. Look, Chavez, he won in Venezuela, he won twice elections. Urban was liberal. Vučić wins election several times. So these are democracies. You have to be careful not to slip into a situation where we see the critical mass, the opposition, the media, as the enemy of the state. Because this is where we have broken and when we have damaged all this path that we have done from the 90s that I have described. There is a price that we have paid. Many people died. Many they could have died, as I have explained in journalism. Many people, they fought for what they believe. But it is civil society and it's media that is there to tell us that minority rights counts, that those NGOs in the north are important, that we should not act as the other used to act, and as that human rights and equality, it's not something that we can pick and choose. It's the ideal for what we fought, for what we work, and for what we think that our country should be. Thank you.
How do you envision the role of media literacy programs and the independent journalism in countering the influence of partisan narratives on democratic engagement in Kosovo?
When we discuss, let's say, these viruses, as human being has some viruses, societies, especially democracies, and societies that have viruses, and one of them is misinformation, and it was there always. We just see it now because the enemy of the West is more sophisticated, they have much more money. But this virus of misinformation was there. When we decided to move forward as a nation in, let's say, in 2005 and 2006 and move towards independence, we also decided to face the past. So we were talking, let's face the past in order that we improve policies and things and so on. Some mistakes that we did. One of the mistakes was 17th of March in 2004. So what we have in the Ahtisaari is because we were not quite mature to manage that problem well. I think if we want to reach far and if we want to be NATO and EU, we should not face the past, but we should face the future. And to me, three things are critical. First, escape from the mindset that I have the trust and I can rule the world. The checks and balances in the United States and everywhere are there to make it functional, not to be as a cosmetics, as decor. Second issue is we need to fight really one of the largest viruses in Western Balkans, corruption. Corruption is a big problem. It has been a big problem, and we should talk about it, and civil society should talk about it. Last but not least, in this world, we are different. So we need, in this diverse world, to unify ourselves in a cause. What's our cause? What's our greater objective? Is to join NATO and EU. How we can reach there without friends? We cannot reach, full stop. We'll go around here, from town to town, from city to city, to blame each other. Unless we don't face the future and we don't see where these viruses are, we will not be able to deliver. And as Trump is saying, let's make America great again, I'm saying let's make Kosovo great again. How we can do it great again, Kosovo? If we unify and we fight these two things. Authoritarian mindset, fight corruption, and be united in a diversity.
Mr. Tahiri, can you share some examples, good ones, of partnership between parliamentarians and civil society in promoting transparency within the Assembly of Kosovo?
Yes, many. Many because, as you all know, there are few think tanks and institutes that are doing a great job in facing us with evidence-based reports, but also with suggestions when it comes to legal drafting, when it comes to the policies that potentially might violate the constitutional framework. So yes, I have had great cooperation with Justice Institute of Kosovo, with Kadri, with you, and with many others, because they were there, because I remember the time when they were bluntly against me as Deputy Prime Minister, as a member of the government for several years, because potentially they were right. And when they are critical on some policies towards this government. So when we were in the government, they were fully in support of this government. That's true, fully. They were very positive of what's coming. Also, some, let's say, ambassadors, foreign ambassadors, they were very obvious in favor of the change. And this has been obvious. To go back a little bit to what the Minister said, please. You said to be persistent and to be reflective.
Persistent, but also reflective. You should reflect how you are persistent.
Okay, so I think that we are very, very vocal and very direct in explaining how important is our NATO path. When it comes to the way to the path, definitely sometimes there is a will, but there is no way. So we are looking for the ways with partners, especially with the United States of America. And one thing that we should never do as a mistake, we don't see neither red nor blue there. We see just one flag. And very often when we talk to European, let's say, colleagues, ambassadors, or I studied in Birmingham in the UK, so they were asking me about why you are so pro-American. Because many of you, I said, you left us alone when we were in mud. There was a hand. I was refugee in Blace, so there was a hand that was given to me in the mud. I was with my mom, and they took us and they helped us. And let's say sometimes the critical exchange, it's not criticism. It sounds criticism, but it is an advice. Thank you.